talking to Valerie Boyle, PAL resident, actress, singer, and hopefully someone's got lots of stories to tell. I've been told you have lots of stories to tell.
Oh dear.
Okay, so we're going to begin at the beginning.
Beginning at the beginning.
Which I understand is Southampton.
Oh my God, you're good. Yeah, I was born in Southampton, England. Yeah. And
we won't reveal the date.
We don't reveal the date. Oh, good.
However,
December 5th, my birthday. December
however,
5th.
we have to say that you are a certified baby boomer.
I am a certified baby boomer. Boom. Yeah.
Because your parents saw the war.
That's right.
So let's begin there. Your father.
My father was a Royal Marine, Ernie Jones, never had any middle name. Ernie Jones went into the Marines when before he was allowed to. He lied about his age and went in at 17. And he was put on sentry for the Queen of England, for Elizabeth before she was the Queen.
Really?
And he had to march up and down, and they march and they go back and not supposed to say anything. And she came up down the stairs.
Would this be a buck house?
This would be, I guess, she was, wasn't, it was one of the ministry,
Okay.
but she used to fix cars, and she was a mechanic herself. Yes. So this was before she was a queen.
Right.
She was a young...
She served in uniform.
She served in uniform. And so she came down, she opened the door, she came down the stairs, and he's marching, and she came, and he went, "Oh, God, you're beautiful," which was verboten. No.
Much too informal.
Absolutely, you could not do that.
Back in the Middle Ages, you might lose your head for that one.
That's exactly. And he was thrown in the brig for doing that.
Was he?
And yeah, he was thrown in the brig for quite a while, and he never was allowed to do it again. But he found her beautiful, and when he saw my mum, he was exactly the same. "Oh God, you are beautiful," and that was it. And then I was born.
Now they married before the war. Or
They
married after the war.
They married after the war.
Okay, so they did hold off to after the war.
They
And he served in
meet.
England, or did he go overseas?
They did not meet until 46,
Okay.
1940. So it was just that they met after the war.
Okay, and did he serve? Or
He served overseas.
where?
Yeah, he was in the. Oh, now I know this. He was in the regiment, the Middle East. He served in the Middle East, and he was on the. He was. Oh my gosh, my memory now. He was.
Well, if you haven't thought about this for a while, I'm only probing because my father did exactly the same thing.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Because your father and my father, he enlisted in '39.
Right.
He wasn't much older than your dad.
Right.
You know, and he married, but he married before the war.
Oh, isn't that yeah.
And then he served. And he was in the Middle East. He got to as far as Cairo.
That's
Well, the English ran Egypt.
That's
that was part of the
exactly
Roman Empire, was Egypt.
That's right, and he was.
That's why the Germans wanted to take Egypt. They came across the Libyan desert to take Egypt. Why? Because it was the center of British power in the Middle East.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why it was so important.
Okay. Well, then Dad went on to, an aircraft carrier.
Right.
And I know the name of the aircraft carrier, but it's somewhere deep in the recesses. You know what happens when you get old?
I was just curious because I was born in London and you were born in Southampton.
Yeah.
Now, which means that probably your mother lived through the Blitz.
No, my mother was shipped out. She was one of those children that would
Oh,
the railway
okay.
children
Oh,
put on.
all right.
She was.
Because my mother served down south.
Is
she
that
served
right?
in the radar.
Oh, really?
Well, remember there was a whole series
Yeah.
of radar stations
Yes.
along the east coast,
Well,
along the southern coast.
I do know
Yeah,
that, and some of them, they stood
They were very
when I
famous.
was there. Yes,
Yeah, very
exactly.
famous. Because the British had the radar and the Germans didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know what the Brits used to say? We eat a lot of carrots. Therefore we can see in the dark. That's the trick. I swear to God, my mother used to tell that story. That was the story they used to tell. We could see in the dark because we ate a lot of raw carrots. I thought it was cute. because the Germans didn't know that there was a series of radar stations on the south of England.
Is that right?
Oh,
wow.
So my mother tells stories about that. So I thought maybe you would have, but she was shipped out of that part to a safer part in northern England.
She was shipped out to a farm.
Oh, okay.
The kids.
Right.
She was just during the war, so she was born in '29. So during the war.
So she'd be a young teenager.
A kid, and
okay.
what happened during the war? They thought they didn't want them in the main towns.
Absolutely, because Southern England was. I was saying the Blitz. They hit Southern England all the way up to London.
That's right.
But as far as Liverpool, I mean, they really took care of the south coast.
And she hated it. She did not want to go away, and she was treated like a slave. She did not get a very good experience when she was shipped to a farm. She was,
treated basically as slave labor.
That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted slave labor. You get up in the morning and you do these are your chores, and you do that. This is for your roof and your supper and your.
Do you know what they also had a system in England? If you were an orphan child, they would ship you off to Canada for the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, they called them home children.
Oh my God.
They didn't want the kids in the welfare in England, so they would ship them off to basically slave labor and Canadian farms.
Yeah.
But you'd get a Canadian citizenship out of it, so there was something at the end of it.
Well, yeah.
But they didn't. The English have a anyway. Now, so let's bring it up to date. So you were born in Southampton, and I understand your parents immigrated in '64.
Yeah. Geez.
So where did they come to?
Geez, you know a lot about me.
Valerie, I would like to say it's my job, but it's my job.
Yeah.
I spent 50 years doing research and writing about Canadian film and television.
Oh, really?
So it's not about me. Trust me, I know the story.
So we came over on the Rhine Dam in September 1964.
Pier 51?
Went
Halifax?
right to, yes. Right, Jesus.
We came through Pier 51.
Oh dear, you came there too?
Yeah, but all the Brits did. That's where you came.
Holy cow.
It was like Ellis Island.
Yeah.
Because I actually went back there, and if you go back there, there's a big shed where you came off the boat, you walked to the gangplank, you came to the big shed, and you just sat on these benches until they called your name.
That's right.
And if you had the right paperwork, they just put you on a train and said goodbye.
And that's what we did.
Yeah, because the train was right there. It was right there, so you took to Montreal or Toronto or further.
We went through Montreal.
I bet you did the same trip we did.
Is that right?
Yeah, except I was 7 years old and you were probably about 15 or something.
I was,
huge impression.
Yeah.
Going through Quebec in April. More snow than I've ever seen.
Is that right?
And I still remember it. It was just like, what?
Oh my God.
The world is white.
Yeah.
But you had the same thing, and you came where, to Toronto or
we went to London, Ontario, which we were told was like London, England. Bullshit. But it was lovely. London, a lot of. I don't know whether you got this when I understood later in life that when you went into the immigration and they advised you where to go, it was where they needed people to work, right? So some people were sent to Vancouver, some people were sent to Winnipeg, and we were sent to London, Ontario. Really? So
So our situation was that my mother knew someone in Toronto who was prepared to put them up. Yeah, so we sat in London, England for about 6 months until we got the clearance. But there was someone she'd met during the war, was in Canada, was in Toronto, and they agreed to put us up.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a bit of a break, I guess, because we didn't get sent somewhere. We had somewhere.
You had,
Yeah.
The family, It was,
But I understand that you headed back to England pretty quick. Lickety split.
Very lickety split, yeah.
What was all that about?
Well, I got into, luckily enough, because I always wanted to be an actress, I got into RADA for a week. So they helped me pay. My parents helped me with the money as much as we could. And I went over in 1967. But I got into a show band in order to supplement so that I could live income. But
Would this be in London?
This would be in London.
So where would you be living cheap in London in 1967?
Well, I started off with a girlfriend. My girlfriend and I got a flat in, I think it was in Beckenham or something, and then we get the train, so we lived just outside. And then I got into a show band, and the show band gave me 60 guineas a week, which was a huge, to compare it, my uncle, who would be working and was a lot older than me, was earning 9 guineas a week, and this show band was giving me 60 guineas a week. But the trouble was, I was working at Masonic functions and singing every night. I was too tired to go to school, so I didn't, like, you miss the first day, you miss the second, and then you don't tell your parents you're not going for the thing that they have to provide. It was a huge shame.
You don't turn it down.
No.
That age.
Oh my God, I was performing, which is what I always wanted to do.
And you were right in the heart of
so
must be a fabulous time.
and they got me, I billeted, and they got me billeting, and so it was a fabulous, it was, and that's what I did. I sang in a show band for years.
So who was, I was writing down a couple of names here. How about Petula Clark?
Yeah, Petula Clark was,
Lulu.
and Lulu, yeah.
Sandy Shaw.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And
well, Lulu was easy because To Serve With Love.
Right.
And Petula Clark is easy because she was big time.
Right. Well, they were
but
all
Sandy Shaw was good with the blues. I mean, she was a good singer. She wasn't necessarily big in North America, but she certainly was at the time. So who was it? The Beatles or the Stones?
I love the Beatles.
So who was it? John, Paul, George, or Ringo?
Oh my God! I would have to say it was always John at first.
Oh, good for you!
Now,
I like that choice.
And now it's Paul. I love Paul McCartney. I think he's lovely. But in 1964, before we came, the Beatles came to. They were just starting out, and they came in the summer to the cinema. Oh my God! Was it the Gaumont Cinema?
The Gaumont, yeah.
The Gaumont Cinema in Southampton.
Which was a big chain.
And a big chain, and they I think Roy Orbison was on the bill.
I know that tour, yes, the famous one in 62 or 61.
It was, well actually this was, 64.
Oh, it was, okay, but I know what tour with Roy Orbison, they did a tour with Roy Orbison.
And in this was summer 64 or the fall of 63, I forget, but I went out.
It couldn't have been in summer 64, by that time Hard Day's Night had happened.
Okay, so it must have been
It must have been prior to getting to the States. It must have been 63.
And I was...
It was in fact 63,
And then I wasn't supposed to go out, but I went out without my mom's permission with my girlfriends from school, and we slept on the pavement in order to get tickets to go to see. So they were really beginning to get famous at that time, the Beatles, yeah.
What else did you like? Herman's Hermits?
I liked Herman's Hermits, yeah.
He was cute.
Yeah, they were, those were...
Jerry the Pacemakers?
Yeah, they were all my...
Yeah. I knew we have a similar background. Because even though I was brought up in Canada, my parents were English to the core.
Yeah.
They knew about the Beatles long before Ed Sullivan knew about the Beatles, because they had a radio show here called Ray Sonnen, Calling All Brits, on the CFRB.
Now, I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that. If you were 63, 64, you could not have missed it if your parents were English.
Yeah, that's
CFRB, his name was Roy Sonnen, Sonin, Calling All Brits.
Oh
He would do the Goon Show. You'd play the Beatles, you'd play Petula Clark, you'd play Vera Lynn.
Vera Lynn, my dad's favorite.
So you went back to England, you joined a show band, which sounds great, by the way. Especially when you were, 17, 18?
Yeah.
Lead singer?
Yeah.
Pretty cute, I bet. In miniskirt?
Yeah, miniskirt.
At the boys?
And my first...
Were they screaming?
Well, it's so weird because I went to before I'd gone to London, I was living I stayed in Southampton when I first came back to England. My girlfriend and I went to Southampton, and there were these auditions that my girlfriend wanted to go to. It was the Rank organisation, and it was a dance hall. So I went with her, and he said, the guy said, "Are you going to get up and sing?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And he said, and there were like a ton of girls. There were like 60 girls auditioning for this, so I watched them all. And then he said, "What about you? Do you sing?" And I said, "Well," and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Valerie Chanté."
I love it.
He said, "Valerie Chanté." Anyway, he said, "Well,
From Montreal.
I don't know why." So anyway, I get up on stage, and it's the big band, and he said, "What number would you like to sing?" And I said, "The only number I know is Big Spender."
From
yeah.
Bob Fosse.
Yes, the minute you walked in the joint. And Shirley Bassey, it was big, right, at that time. So I sang it, and I didn't even know my key. And they had to get my key. I sang it, and he said, "Okay, you're hired. Come back tonight." I went, "What?" And he said, "Thank you very much to all the other girls. We've just chosen our lead singer." And he said, "What is your name?" And I said, "Valerie Chanté." He said, "No, it's not." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Valerie Jones, but I hate that." And he said, "Valerie Jones it is. Valerie Jones." So he said, "You're on tonight. You're going to sing 5 songs." I was like, "Whoa, what songs?" And he said, "These are the 5, and I'm going to give you the records, and you're going to learn them." And some were just, like "Congratulations." There were hip songs, but one was "Someday he'll come along, the man I love," and I had never heard it. So he said,
real torch song.
And he said, but this was done in like
was that lead a horn or something?
Oh, it was like the orchestration was phenomenal. And I haven't that was the entrance, right? "Someday he'll come along." It was really a phenomenal orchestration. He gave me the orchestration to learn. He said, "You learn that for tonight." And I was like, oh, fuck. So the other songs were easy because they were all pop songs. I knew them anyway, right? And Big Spender was the first song, I just auditioned. I didn't even want to audition. I'd auditioned the night before. I didn't even have anything to wear. So the first song he says, and here we are, Valerie Jones with Big Spender. And I come out and I do Big Spender. 3,000 people in the Rank Organization Hall. It was like 3,000 people. And they went nuts. It was nuts. The ovation. I've never heard anything like it. So then I go off, my knees are shaking like this. And then I do the next song, which is probably, "To Serve With Love." It was all the,
Something contemporary
pop. All the plutonic.
Yeah.
And then I did "Congratulations." The audience, they're stomping now. They're stomping, right? And I'm thinking, I just need to go off. Because I said to him, do not have me do your song that I never even heard, "The Man I Love." I have to go off and think about it before I do it. So he said, he promised me. I'm doing their stomping, and he says, "And here she is, you love her, here she is again. Okay, guys," and all of a sudden the orchestration, ba, ba, and I look at him, and my knees are going, and he's looking at me, and da, 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 the intro comes in. I can't even think of the first word. My knees are shaking, and I ran off stage. I was so scared. And didn't sing the song. I left. Okay, I literally did not go back. He came and asked me to go back, and I said no. I'm giving up. Anyway, now I go, and the same thing happens in London. My girlfriend wants to audition for a show band. I get up and sing. I get the show band. Okay, so Valerie Jones is in the show band for 4 or 5 years. And when I go to leave to come back to Canada, we're auditioning girls. And I'm there with the auditions. And this lovely woman comes up, a young girl comes up, and she sings, and she's very nice. And they said, guess what her name is? Her name is Valerie Jones. I went, Valerie Jones? Yeah. She's been singing with the Rank organization for the last 4 years in Southampton. And it wasn't her real name. They changed her name to Valerie Jones. So I sang there by name for the next several years, and then she followed me and did that.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
Sounds a bit unethical.
I was there one night.
My goodness.
And yes, it was unethical. It was this, I mean, the fact that I asked him not to have me sing the song I didn't know right away.
Yeah. Well, also Jones is such an easy name.
Yeah, I guess, and but I guess he didn't want to make a fool of himself. I don't know. He said Valerie Jones, so Valerie Jones was on.
Now listen, but it did bring us forward because you did say 5 years, and you're back in Canada.
I'm back in Canada.
Which means early 70s.
Early 70s.
Where in Canada?
I came back to Kitchener, London. I came back to London and Kitchener. Yeah.
Okay. Why there? Family?
Yeah, my family moved. My father got a job at the University of Waterloo, and he was.
But by this time, you're an established performer.
I'm a singer.
Okay.
I'm just a singer, so I would sing at clubs, and I would go sing at clubs around here, you know.
Because I want to take you through a lot of the stuff. I know you've done interviews before. There's actually one already on the web, which you probably know about. But looking through your resume, as it were.
Oh dear.
You have quite a collection here, and we are going to get. Well, I don't know whether to start or end on Mary Poppins.
Oh,
well, I suspect I'm going to start.
Don't end on Mary Poppins.
Yeah, well, I suspect I'm going to start because it just seems to me that why bury the lead. So, as far as I can tell, again, research, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, is that you actually, when they launched or decided to remount the West End on Broadway, which was 2006, did you actually audition?
2007
7?
or 8.
No, it was actually 2000. Well,
yeah. So what I did was I auditioned for the remount for Broadway, but they hired, and so it was. I was very, very close, but I was an unknown.
right. No, because this is the story actually. Again, the research that I've done is that Disney bought the New Amsterdam, renovated it, and basically is going to use it for its showcase.
Right.
This not ancient, but one of these sort of classic theaters in New York City.
Oh, it's a beautiful theater.
So I want to talk a little bit about the New Amsterdam. But so the thing is that you did audition. You came close for the maid. It's a housekeeper, isn't it?
It's a housekeeper.
Yeah, housekeeper.
Mrs.
One, I got to tell you, I'm such a huge fan of Mary Poppins.
Oh,
the Disney version, the first one, the Julie Andrews version. It's one of my childhood, and one of my. I can go on about that, but I won't because I want to have you tell your story about Mary Poppins because I can tell you stories about Mary Poppins. But anyway, but later when they do the touring company, you get a phone call.
Yeah.
Tell me about the phone call.
So they said would Valerie come and audition for the tour? And
this is the North American tour.
Yeah, the North American tour, and we will pay her fare down and pay her hotel fare. Oh, they did that the first one too.
And you were actually living at Pal at the time.
Yeah.
When that happened.
I was living at Pal.
Yeah.
Anyway, went down there, and they treated me like a queen, and then the English production company and Disney were just lovely to work with, just lovely. They're just you're a wonderful company to work for. Very respectful and very appreciative of their talent, and so.
And you ended up on Broadway.
I did the tour.
So how did that work out?
Well, then when I was in Chicago, so we'd done the rehearsals, and then it was just a couple of weeks into the performance in Chicago, and I got a phone call early from my agent. Dave said, they said they're now interested in you being on Broadway, but you have to get the approval of like about 50 people. They all have to say they would like to see you on Broadway. Anyway, they watched me, and then Anthony Lynn came just before oh my God, it was I think, anyway, he came in, and it was under the staircase at the theater in Chicago, the Palace, in just outside my dressing room, and he said, "You're going to Broadway," and I screamed and I started crying, and he said, "Yeah, you'll be on Broadway for your birthday, your 60th birthday," and I was, and I had a lovely dressing room, and it was lovely, and they wanted to take me to be in the LA opening first, so it was lovely. Anyway, it was a spectacular time. So
now, according to Playbill, you were there from December 09 to October 11.
October, no.
2011.
No. 2013, we didn't
Okay.
finish, yeah.
So, well, that's what's on Playbill now, but I did read elsewhere that it was 13.
Yeah, it's 13.
So basically, that's 3 years?
No.
4 or 9? 4 years. 4 years.
4, 5, one for the 5 years.
So you
One
gave
for
up
the
your
tour.
apartment in Powell
Right,
and moved to New York.
yeah.
So tell me about that. We're in New York.
I was on the Upper West Side for West 84th Street.
Yeah.
Just down the road from, anyway, it was just between West End and Riverside. And there's Broadway, West End, Riverside. And so a walk to Riverside Park, which was just like half a block to Riverside Park. It was just gorgeous. And just a little apartment. It said it's 1 bedroom, but what they do is they take a bachelor and put a wall up. Yeah, cut it in half and then call it 1 bedroom. But very expensive. They're about, $2,500, $3,000 a month. They're not cheap. And then I moved from there up to Harlem. It was a cheaper apartment. And loved Harlem too. And I moved into the Savoy, dancing at the Savoy apartments, the Savoy complex. So it was a gated community, and you remember the big dance hall dancing at the Savoy. It was on that property.
Great.
Yeah.
Now listen, let's just go back to New Amsterdam, because for the viewers who do not know, New Amsterdam is one of the original theaters in New York, built around 1902.
Yeah. Oh
it was a home of the Ziegfeld Follies.
That's right.
It is in so many 30s and 40s movies. I mean, it is. They made movies about Ziegfeld umpteen dozen times, about the Follies, about the rooftop garden that he had.
Right.
I mean, it is a hallowed place on Broadway, which went into disrepute, and then Disney.
Well, they
renovated
used
it.
to. They used to.
Now, hang on, let me just
Go
finish
ahead,
this,
Rose.
because I want to get to, before you go on with another story, is that it was, for a while, the home for Billy Burke, the actress.
Mm-hmm.
Giselle in Wizard of Oz, for those who don't remember Billy Burke. Billy Burke was married to Flo Ziegfeld. Were you in her dressing room? Because the story that is told is that a reporter went to your dressing room, and outside the dressing room was a picture of Billy Burke. And I'm just wondering, was this Billy Burke's? Because, I mean, you can't get more hallowed Broadway than the wife of Flo Ziegfeld and sharing the same dressing room?
Well,
Maybe that's to stretch too far.
no, they used to put different pictures up there. There was
Okay.
another one up there, and I thought it was his dressing room too. Now it would have been, absolutely, it was the dressing room closest to the stage. It was
Right.
sort of it was 2.5 floors up. So I could walk down the stairs to the
Right.
stage, but I like to walk up one flight and catch the elevator down. just because we did elevator plays.
Right.
So anyway, but it was a large dressing room, and it was one closest to the stage. But the leads were up on the 5th floor, and they had huge dressing rooms also.
Right.
But I was separate. It was lovely.
No, I'm sure it was a
And her photo was there at one time, but.
Yeah. No, it's just that, again, I'm a fan of old-time movies, and I'm a fan of The Wizard of Oz, and Billy Burke, and she was a great little comedian. And she was actually the wife of the legendary...
Well, Tom Schumacher used to come down from the 8th floor all the way down, and he would pop his head in. And I actually said, I'm in, and it was not Billy Burke's, it was, and I forget the name, and he said, well, we put like...
Yeah, we put it all there.
we put 7, it could have been, and he said, more than likely, yeah, they would have come in and used that dressing room, someone,
but it wasn't necessarily her private
but it wasn't her private dressing room.
Oh, so let's just talk a little bit about Mary Poppins, because I'm a really big fan. So how was the musical? I haven't seen the musical, but the musical, I mean, the movie's a musical. So how is it different from the movie? Is it?
Yeah, it's, well...
in the movie, I mean the original Julie Andrews, most wonderful Disney movie of all times. With some of the best songs.
Oh, it's lovely, lovely.
And no one's topped Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. No one has topped that at all.
Yeah, and the Sherman Brothers, who wrote the music for the... I just met the one Sherman brother who's now deceased, and he was lovely. But the Sherman Brothers, before he died, Robert and Richard Sherman, they had split. And
as a writing team.
As a writing team. So they got a writing team from England to write some new songs.
Right.
Because they wrote like them.
Right.
And yeah, they were, the songs were absolutely, so there were new songs in the play. The character I played in the movie had been 3 women, and they combined them into one.
Because there's 3 maids, isn't it?
That's right.
And she's not the one walking, because it's Angela, it's not Angela, who's it?
No.
Elsa Lancaster is the one who walks out and says, I can't take this anymore.
Right.
And Mrs. Brill is
that's right.
That's her there
Brill.
saying, and what can do now, we're going to do that, you know, because this is like the...
So they combined all the 3,
okay.
and I was Mrs. Brill,
Okay. All right. Now, have you ever seen something called Saving Mr. Banks, a movie about...
yes.
So you know that Mary Poppins is about the father. It's not about the kids.
Yeah.
It's about her relationship with the father.
Yeah.
And he wrote that to save her father from humiliation at the bank. So that's why it gets really sentimental at the end. It breaks your heart. I mean, the kitchen lady is just like, you know...
It was Saving Mr. Banks was a lovely, and I got to watch before they put that out. I got to watch a special screening. We were invited to a special screening with the presidents.
And she hated the penguins.
Yes, she did not like.
No, she hated the penguins.
Yeah, that's right. Hated them, and she did not like Dick Van Dyke either.
No, he didn't like what he did. Even though he's got the most spectacular dance routine.
Dick Van Dyke was...
in the history of cinema!
Oh my God. It was just his
accent. The chimney
accent.
sweeps, I mean, it's brilliant.
Right, it was his accent, but he came and
what accent? He didn't have he just made all this stuff up.
But he came and was a special guest on the stage for Mary Poppins.
Oh,
so I have a photo up in my apartment of Dick Van Dyke on stage.
Well, we should get that one. Remind me of that one.
Dick Van Dyke came and he looked, my God, I think he was...
So how did on stage to do the penguins? Did they do the penguins on stage, or how was that sequence work out?
They did.
It was a whole sequence, a fantasy sequence with the merry-go-round and supercalifragilistic and... They
did that, but not in... it wasn't the... It wasn't the cinema. Of course, it's a stage.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
They did.
Did you do a merry-go-round?
A merry-go-round with dancing.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And
But no one got into penguin suits.
No, it was beautifully choreographed. Beautifully choreographed.
Well, I should imagine anything that Disney touches.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Is
and
always
the
highest quality. They always go for.
And the magic. And when they walked around the proscenium, like when Gavin Lee walked around the proscenium, you know, Bert, it was magical. Magical.
Now, so you did actually make it to Broadway.
Right.
Because I also have my mother who was into amateur theater. When she got onto Broadway, it was like, I made it.
Oh, was she?
It was 1959. She walked down Broadway and said, I made it to Broadway. But of course she never did, but she did, because in 1959, Broadway was a pretty special place. They had South Pacific on Broadway in 1959.
Oh no, Broadway, I think Broadway is the pinnacle for a stage actress.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
maybe West End, but Broadway is
right.
Worldwide. You can't touch it. I mean,
no, right.
You know,
it's
like your Oscar. I mean, it's just that's it. You can't go any higher. There's no like super Broadway. You know, it's just like there's Broadway, there's West End, and that's it.
Yeah, it's true.
Not even Las Vegas. I mean, you know, not even Chicago. You know, nothing.
No,
you know?
it's.
But they've sold it like that, which is great, and apparently Broadway is opening up in September.
Yeah, the Big White Way, and I mean they love Canadian, and Come From Away is just
huge down there.
Fantastic.
But let's talk about what you've also done. You've done. I'm interested to know that you did the Michel Tremblay play, the Belle Soeur.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great play.
Fantastic.
You did also. You did self-produced. You did Sophie Tucker.
Yeah.
Which you seem to be a big fan of Sophie Tucker. You did Oliver. You've done Oliver. You did Shirley Valentine. You played the lead in Shirley Valentine.
There's only one person in
Shirley Valentine to play. You were in The Music Man. You had a part in Chicago.
Yes, I played your mama.
Yeah.
Several.
Is that the one played by Queen Latifah in the movie? Is she the matron of the hospital?
Yes,
prison?
that is the one played by Queen Latifah in the movie.
Yeah.
And I actually, Matron Mama Morton was written for Sophie Tucker.
Oh, really?
It was written, and they actually used some of her lines.
Right.
You know, I believe in tit for tat, and that's the way I live. I deserve a hell of a lot of tat for what I got to give. That's and so
that's
and
right
they,
out of Sophie Tucker, right?
That is Sophie Tucker, and they used it in the song, and so they wrote you. So it was written for Sophie Tucker. When they were doing the movie, the director was staying. I was living in Rosedale, and I was performing at the Red Barn. I was performing Sophie Tucker there, and they were performing the movie. And apparently I am told that the director came and saw me do Sophie Tucker. He did not come up to me, he came and
just to see.
I am told he saw me. And listening to Queen, I would go down into the audience.
Right.
Listening to Queen Latifah do an interview, and she was fabulous as Matron Mama. She was just fabulous.
Over the top.
She was like, I adore her.
A brassy mama, if there ever was one.
She's a brassy mama. And she was, anyway, she said they had rehearsed, done all the choreography, and she said the director came in when they're supposed to shoot it. The director came in the next day and said, "No, we're changing it. We're changing everything. You're going to come into the audience." And she was like, "What?" She said, "I'm not ready for that." He said, "No, I want you coming into the audience and doing and she was, so I went, ooh, I wonder I wonder if he was inspired for some reason, but you never know. But anyway, I think she did she was fabulous as
Chicago as a production is a difficult thing to pull off. I mean, you do know the sort of history of that. When it was first previewed, that people rejected it. I mean, it wasn't a hit. And only till later, did it become a
cult favorite. It really did.
Well, it didn't tank,
and it's
but it just
very funny. And I mean, but the irony of that.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones is quite wonderful.
Oh, she was lovely. She's a major talent. They're all so beautiful.
I have a story to tell you though, because I was interviewing the producer of Chicago, who was on set when she did her big production number, when she lands on the chair, and she's got these using the chair, and then she spreads her legs and she comes down hard. You know, very provocative, but still, it's a hard move to make. And apparently they were shooting it, and she was just doing it until finally she couldn't do it anymore. And she turned to someone and just said, "Has anyone got any ice?" And every man in him was saying,
yeah, exactly, I'm sure.
"We're gonna ice my thighs."
Never would someone ice my thighs.
I thought that was in keeping with the movie, but it was a funny moment. But he's a music man. But just go to Sophie Tucker, because you got a special love for Sophie. Where does that come from? Now, to explain to, again, the audience, a younger audience, Sophie Tucker was a vaudevillian performer.
Yep.
With Mae West territory.
Right.
Bette Midler, before she was Bette Midler. I mean, a brassy, ballsy, New York, loudmouth comedian.
She was, but
and not afraid to tell a dirty joke.
Not afraid. And it was written in her songs. A lot of the double entendres were written in her
Which
songs,
more like single
and
entendres.
she loved to tell double entendres, because the double entendre type of humor they could get away with.
Right.
They could not be, and everybody knew what they were saying, but she'd say it's not. I'm not talking. It's what you're thinking.
Right.
It's not what I'm saying. And she actually, the irony of Sophie was that she always wanted to look classy. She was a large woman. She was a big woman, and she always wanted to be classy. So she wanted, when she first went into the business, what fascinated me about her is that they all called her ugly, and she would not make it, so they put her in blackface and only made her sing
mommy songs.
Yeah, mommy songs.
Yeah,
and
minstrel stuff.
That's right. And then they lost her trunk, and the guy, she said, I can't go on stage. And he said, what do you mean you can't do, like you've got a voice, like, sing. And she went on and sang without her blackface makeup. And that changed it. And then she wanted like lovely gowns and lovely dresses. And she was nervous, so she always had a kerchief that she would hold. And she had, the boas and the feathers and the big hats. And so she loved the glamour. She came...
Last of the Red Hot Lovers.
The last of the Red Hot Mamas. And she was raised in Hartford, so she always wanted to speak with a clipped Hartford accent. And so, because she thought that was classy, it's type of English, that Hartford. So she did not speak with a New York accent.
Oh, really?
It was always
Okay.
very, very clipped.
Oh, okay.
And very, she would speak like this. And try to put on Harvard airs.
Well, I mentioned Mae West because Mae West was also famous for those double entendres, who were close to a single entendre, by the way.
Oh, yeah. But she came just
yeah.
prior. She was definitely an inspiration.
Wow. Because Mae West, because she got kicked out of cinema, literally, they wouldn't let her perform.
Right.
And they had her do her routines in front of censors. If you do it flat, without context, and you don't do it,
Right.
it just sounds flat. It doesn't mean anything. But within the context of the film, in the context of Sophie's delivery, and Mae West's delivery, it meant a lot.
Right,
And it scared men. Because they had the power. These women had power. Bette Midler had power over men. It was just extraordinary.
Yeah.
She drew from Sophie and drew from Mae West.
Yes, she did. And she still does.
Yeah, she still does. And she acknowledges that, But, so you did a one-woman show.
Sophie Tucker, yeah.
How long did that go for?
Several years, and it would be, the guy who played, I have Sophie's desk, Sophie Tucker's desk.
Really?
Yeah. And the guy who played her, Randy Van Court, played Teddy Shapiro, who was Sophie's longtime pianist, and she considered him like a son.
Right.
So yeah, we did that. We would we would do it every year, like do a summer and get books and bookings, and then we'd get more bookings the next year. Just, it kept itself going until I went to Broadway.
Now, do you find that the type of theater which you obviously moved towards is musical theater? Do you do straight theater at all, or do you do?
Yes.
You have done dramatic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you don't feel constrained just to do musical theater.
No, I do plays, dramatic or comedy or plays, just plays without music.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But Michel Tremblay play, which ended up being called Sisters,
Right.
was it was a regular regular play, but when it was made into Sisters, they added music.
I saw a production of the Tarragon back in the 70s.
Of Michel Tremblay's
Yeah,
play,
yeah.
that was no music.
Yeah, yeah. It
But
was
when
straight
they-
up.
Right.
Yeah. But Michel Tremblay was a major playwright back then.
Right. Oh yeah, and he would come to rehearsals. Yeah.
Now, so of your say more straight drama, what is your preference? I mean, what have you done that you really
I guess I
made an
think
impression
really
on you?
my is Shirley Valentine.
Okay.
Yeah, that is my because you're on stage alone, and I did several productions. I did and my first production was with Di Proctor in Lindsay. She said to me, I want to do Shirley Valentine, and I'd like you to do it. So we put it on, but the board said you cannot do the clitoris bit. You cannot do, so you had to take out 5 pages. So I skipped that. And the trouble with cutting that cuts out the very heart of what Shirley Valentine is all about, right? That is the very core of what that play is about, that clitoris section. And because she's, coming into her own in womanhood. And so, anyway. And Peter Mandia from Theatre Aquarius wanted to do his version and so there were several productions of Shirley Valentine going on that time. There were 6 productions that summer, including Lindsay. So he went and saw everyone, and then he called me up and he said, can I take you out to Chinese food dinner? I would like you to do it. But why didn't you do the clitoris section? Would you still do the clitoris section? I said, yeah. Anyway, we did it, and it was the first production at Theatre Aquarius that they extended. And I was doing Nonsense at Stage West, so I had to go and do. I had to do a matinee, and then I'd go and do an evening performance of Nonsense, and do, oh my goodness, a matinee of. It was incredible. It was great.
But in the business of it, you're busy.
I was, yeah.
Right, exactly. Now, in terms of film and television, a couple of things here I want to mention is I already remember this, but I only remember it because I happened to be on set for it. It was a thing called Lantern Hill.
Oh my God, I had forgotten all about
1989.
that. You were on set?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I played an Irish. I'd forgotten all about that. I played an Irish woman.
Kevin Sullivan.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you are. I surprised you with that one, eh?
Well, yes, you did surprise me with that one. I forgot.
But more to the point, you had the voice of Rupert.
Rupert the Bear.
And
No.
I'm trying to explain Canadians
No,
who Rupert
not
is,
the
and
voice
people
of-
just don't. No, you're Mrs. Bear.
Mrs.
I
Bear.
was brought up on Rupert the Bear. I got Rupert the Bear on my wall. I got a poster of Rupert
Oh
the
my
Bear.
God.
I was brought up English. I was brought
Yeah.
up on Noddy and Rupert the Bear.
Me too.
you
Me
know,
too. Yeah.
Whatever those Enoch Bly stories, you know.
Oh.
I think the last production I saw when I left England was Noddy. One of those Christmas pantomime Noddy.
Yeah.
you know,
No. Yeah. Oh my God.
But no, so Rupert, tell a little bit about Rupert, because Rupert is a traditionally English comic strip character, very much beloved.
Oh, very much beloved.
And I don't know how popular is he. Is he popular in Canada?
Oh,
Yeah, what
I
shows?
had people who people come up to me, especially when I was doing, like, and say, "Are you Mrs. Bear on Rupert the Bear?" Yes, and so yeah, it was a very well known series.
It was Nirvana, wasn't it? Who did the
Nirvana,
yeah.
Nirvana,
Yeah,
yeah.
they did a lot of different, they did the Care Bears, but they did Rupert the Bear.
Yeah,
They did it
yeah.
pretty faithfully, I think.
They were very, very good, yeah.
Yeah, because like I say, it is so British though, because of the characters, Badger and
And they hired all British
actors
yes.
to do the, I bet you they did. Which, by the way, you see the hanged on to yours for someone who never read 1964.
Yeah.
My mother, she was over here for a number of years and she completely lost it. She became what they call Mid-Atlantic.
Well, I think I have, if I go to England, I will speak with an English accent. And now, for some reason, I've heard myself, I'm speaking with an English accent. But when I do auditions, I try to use the mid-American accent. I consciously try to
Yeah,
do
because
that.
I don't think my mother consciously did, but somehow that sort of combination of English and Canadian, you just sort of like, you end up sort of like from like northeast United States. I mean, it's sort of a language that's sort of crossed between, because they call it Mid-Atlantic, that's what they call it, Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, no,
Southern, it's not Western, it's Newfoundland, it is a
I think I have
blending
a mid-Atlantic accent, but when I do auditions, I try to, or when they want the mid-American accent.
Can you do a decent Cockney?
Yeah, I can do a decent
Because my
Cockney,
mother's favorite was
Very,
Cockney.
yeah.
Because she was actually born within the sound of Bow Bells.
Oh,
So it makes her officially.
absolutely, she was a Cockney.
So she would burst in to get me to the church on time. Just like that guy. Who's that guy? Who's that guy who does it in My Fair Lady? What's the British actress called? You know that one. Sandy Holloway.
Oh, Sandy Holloway,
She'd belt out, give me the word sometime in a Cockney accent. And Don Mills in Canada. It was like, whoa.
Oh.
Haven't heard this. Also, you were in something called Strange Days at Blake
Halsey High.
What was all that about? That was actually, that wasn't voice, that was
No,
character.
that was
It ran for a number of years.
Yeah, it ran on Discovery Channel and then it's still running today. And I'm still friends, I'm still in contact with the executive producer who hired me, Bruce Kalish. And
It was an American production, filmed here?
it was an American production.
Filmed here.
Yeah, and filmed here. And Bruce Kalish had seen Sophie Tucker.
Okay.
And he had been to see Sophie Tucker, I think, or anyway, he said, and he had hired me for another series earlier. I'd done a couple of days on his other series, and then when I came in for the audition for The Strange Days, he said, "I wrote this character for you."
No.
Anyway, and you see, the thing that was serendipitous and strange about it, Sophie Tucker, her real name was Kalish. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so it was weird to be hired by Bruce Kalish.
Right.
When I remember the first day for the meeting, I was like, "Oh my God, I just played a woman neck. I play a woman named Sophie Tucker, and her real name is Kalish, and you're a Kalish." And he was like,
Oh, wow. Now, I have to say that, okay, so you've been at it since, what, about 16 or 17?
Yeah.
And as a baby boomer, I can take a guess at how old you are
I used to perform in my front yard at a
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any time you have not performed?
I loved to perform.
You loved
I used
to
to
perform,
perform
don't
for
you?
the family and yeah.
And you made a career out of it.
Yeah.
Which you-
Although for years my dad and my mom would say, "When are you going to get a real job?"
job.
Yeah, exactly. And my brother, "When are you going to get a real job?" But here I am in my rusty years.
I'm back in being a pal, because they accept you back in PAL, so now you're saying...
Yeah, I was on the list. I kept on the list,
Okay.
but it took me 7 years to get back.
Oh, because you're just recently back, is that the case?
October.
Oh, okay, so it's not been very long.
No, I haven't been
Okay.
back very long.
All right. Now, have we missed anything of importance? Is there anything that you'd like to say? Because this, like I say, it is for the archives. Have I missed anything that you'd like to mention?
I can't think of anything. I mean, I'll probably think of something outside.
No do-over.
No do-over. We
Oh,
were
let me ask
talking
you-
about the Alexander, the theater,
Right.
They, on the 8th floor, you were talking about the gentleman's club on the
On the top floor. Yeah.
where they
Had
had
more
a
risque performances.
glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And they would have the girls walk across the glass ceiling with no underwear on, so they could choose who was smoking their cigars, and they could look up. And
There are versions of this in Hollywood movies that are much more tame than that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the notion you go up to the rooftop garden after
not
the
the
show.
rooftop garden. It was there.
Well, in the Hollywood movie, but
It was
in
the
other
8th
words,
floor.
well,
So
it was up, yeah.
the 9th floor is where the girls would walk across. There were special rooms without underwear, or
Right.
walk that they could be seen by the men smoking and drinking their whiskey and smoking their cigars. They still have that glass floor. They kept it in for posterity.
Well, trust me,
It's beautiful.
all these Hollywood movies about this time period in Broadway are all whitewashed. Absolutely
Whitewashed. Now they have put
It's all
like a
fantasy.
film on the glass. You can't look up the underwear on the glass floor now.
Also, because of recent events with sort of rewriting Black history in America, Black's been absolutely written out of early Broadway. I mean, they didn't exist. They only played in blackface. You know,
Well,
that's part of it.
I think it's the pendulum does need to swing all the way over, but I hope we're not rewriting history in so many, because I think we don't learn if we don't remember history as it was, we don't learn from it.
Absolutely. Well, what I think what that part of it is that the African American cult. Some people say there wouldn't be an American culture without African Americans.
Absolutely.
There wouldn't be dance.
There wouldn't be jazz.
There wouldn't be jazz.
There wouldn't be.
There wouldn't be rock and roll.
Wonderful music.
Because what Americans up to that point were doing is importing European theater.
Yeah.
European operas or light operas or European theater. But what the blacks were providing was gospel, blues, jazz, and tap.
Right.
You know, so if you think about that, you think about what has been the most influential music and dance since then, which of course has been blues and jazz and tap, but it's been all written out of American history. So it's a point I've been interested in most recently. But you're right. If we erase history, we won't learn from it.
No,
But what Americans did a very, very good job of erasing that contribution to. How many times do you see Louis Armstrong? Maybe about half a dozen times. One of the most influential musicians in American history. And what does he show up as a clown figure in film? You know, so that's that part. Josephine Baker had to go to
went to Europe
to do her thing. You know?
And became a queen.
But also, not so much the social thing, but as someone who's a professional in theatre who's made a living in Canada, I mean, you must have seen the changes. The opportunities that are now available for young talented people in Canada are much more than you were.
And the
theatre
talent
is much broader. You know, it's not just show tunes, but it is, you know, experimental theatre or Canadian theatre, or, you know, there's a lot of different stuff going on, which wasn't going on by the time that you began your career. Do you want to talk about those changes? Are you seeing a lot of really talented people?
Now the
training.
The kids would, when I was sort of in between, like before on vaudeville and stuff, they would get their training and their acting on stage and actually in real time. But then the schools started happening, and then since the schools are excellent. I do regret not staying in school, because that's the network you get. It's networking, and people will hire you just because they know you. And the kids that are coming out from Toronto, like from all the schools that they have here now, are multi-talented. I see the kids now, and they're good with the business end.
Right.
Like, I'm not good with show business. I love show business. I'm great at the show. I'm terrible at business.
Yeah.
And the kids that come out, they seem to They're very good at the business, very good at, you know, they can act, they can sing, they can dance, they can
And they
move,
can manage their careers.
and they can manage their careers. They're amazing talents now.
I've seen an extraordinary growth over the period I've been covering this business, but I just even think of something like Schitt's Creek, which has got primetime Emmy all over.
Brilliant.
I mean, all Canadian shows just walked away with like 7 primetime Emmys, you know? And it's not just Eugene, it's the second generation, it's his son, Dan Levy.
He's,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, Eugene Levy's a genius as far as I'm concerned. I mean, probably the best writer of satire,
Yeah.
you know, contemporary cinema. Because it has a talented son, you know, and walk right. But I'm looking at that stuff, and of course, the Canadian Film Awards are on this week too, you know.
Wow, wow.
Something which I know not too many people do pay to, but it's also because of COVID and whatnot. But what I guess what I'm trying to say is that the business has radically changed since you were joining a show band at 17.
Yes, radically changed.
Right, radically changed. Would you, and my mother always said that, don't put your daughter on the stage,
Mrs. Worthington. Yeah.
What do you think?
It's a tough business.
It
It is
really
a tough
is,
business. So you have to have the desire. It has to be in your blood. If it's in your blood, there's nothing that can stop you. You have to do it.
Right.
And I have been lucky to have, you know, I have not become famous, and I'm not a household name, unless I change it to Tide or something like that, and then I can be a household name. But I'm not. But I've been able to stay in the business, and I've made it like I've been paid for what I've done. I've navigated. I've made some wrong choices some places, and I've had my hits of the star on the door, but I did it
And
for
maybe
loving.
you shared Billy Burke's dressing room.
And maybe even shared.